Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is José Antonio Velázquez. I'm talking to you from El Paso, Texas. As I stated in that little message there, lots of sunshine today and rain forecast for the weekend. We need the rain, so I'm not complaining about it at all. Just wanted to thank you so much for joining us today. Definitely a topic that we across the nation are very much interested in as our demographics change, as we have more English learners in our communities and their families. It is important to make sure that we provide equitable learning environments for our emergent bilinguals. And let's start with that term, emergent bilinguals. Emergent bilinguals is really a very asset-based approach to viewing our English learners. English learners implies that, they're in the process of learning English as a second language. Another term that is used as well is limited English proficient students, which is a deficit kind of a view of these students. Emergent bilinguals is a more positive way to view our students with an asset-based lens. What opportunities do we have for our communities to engage these students across the country to really build on their foundation, what they bring to the table, and to have them be an asset to our country and our communities. Having more than one language, those are the possibilities. When we support our students that are linguistically minoritized, it is important to view them in a different way. View them in a positive way that embraces their culture, embraces that possibility that at the end of their pre-K through 12 journey, they're going to be students, citizens, productive members of our society that are going to be sharing and leading and advocating, contributing to our society in so many ways with more than one language. English being one of them, but their native language being the other, a resource that they can certainly provide and contribute to our community. My name is José Antonio Velázquez. This is hopefully the last time that I present to you with my master's. On Monday, I defend my dissertation, and hopefully I'll have the PhD added to my name. It's an honor to be with you this morning. I am an English learner myself. My parents came to Mexico, to the United States from Mexico back in 1959. 1 year later, 1960, I was born. And I entered school in an all English environment at a time when, if you spoke Spanish, you were paddled with a wooden paddle. And so very quickly, as an English learner in those days, I basically learned that Spanish was not something to be proud of. My culture was something to be ashamed of. There were so many messages that were sent to me as a student that, I was really not wanting to be different. Instead of celebrating my difference, it was just trying to suppress, what made me unique, what made me myself as a heritage speaker of Spanish. So I didn't speak much during the first years. It was all mostly listening and mimicking English. So was I comprehending? No, not really, because everything was English. So I was falling behind. So those are some of the kinds of things that, things have changed. I have noticed across the country that people are more open to the idea that, these kids bring assets to the community. Their families bring something of value to the community. And so teachers are more inclined to do a lot of great things to embrace the culture, the diversity of our students, and to help them shine and to their full potential, unleash their talents. And so as I move through this presentation, I'll be making some connections to some of my experiences as a former English learner, as a teacher of English learners, as a former high school principal who taught, who led teachers in a community with a significant number of emergent bilinguals. And so one of the things that I'd like to draw your attention to is the work of José, who presented the idea that, our students from different communities of color have community cultural wealth. What does she mean by that? Well, it basically refers to her idea that, there are some wonderful assets that these in forms of different types of capital, human capital, that the communities of color bring to the table, bring to our schools, that a lot of times we fail as educators to connect to. How do we draw from these different types of human capital to engage our students in a way that it aligns, to what is meaningful to them? And so she presents the idea of aspirational capital, the ability to persevere by maintaining hopes and dreams that envision future success in spite of the barriers, in spite of those overwhelming odds. And so as I reflect back on the students that I taught as a teacher of English learners, emergent bilinguals, I connected a lot with their families, and their parents reminded me of my parents. They came to this country and they come to this country with the idea that, in the United States, that's where everybody has an opportunity. And they see education as the equalizer, where everybody has that opportunity. What they don't realize is that, that can be just a dream. If teachers, if educators don't fully embrace that idea that, we do make a difference. And we are responsible for making sure that everybody has that ability to learn. I see that in vision statements all across the country. All students will learn. But how truly embedded or invested are we in that dream? Do we really believe that all students can learn? Do our actions reflect that? Or is it just all talk? So we, as educators, must know that a lot of communities of color highly believe, and they maintain their hopes and dreams with those aspirations, that education is the equalizer. So what is it that we can do to make sure that we fulfill our side of our responsibility as educators, to ensure that it's not just all talk, but we actually capitalize on the aspirational capital, the belief from our communities of color that school is the pathway? Well, then, you know what? They're invested, and we need to go ahead and back that up with our actions, with the structures that we create. Linguistic capital. There's linguistic capital in that emergent bilinguals bring with them. That native language. Back in my day, when I entered school, I've already shared, speaking Spanish was frowned on. We were paddled if we were speaking Spanish. And so, teachers did not fully capitalize on the fact that we're bringing a different language, a different opportunity to really use as a way to learn. Do we capitalize on that? Do we capitalize on the fact that the parents also have that linguistic capital? What can we do to utilize the parents as perhaps speakers in our Spanish classes in high school? We teach Spanish, but do our students in high school actually have an opportunity to meet face-to-face people from other parts of the world that can speak, different languages to them? Do they have that opportunity to meet artists, doctors, lawyers, teachers, a mechanic, a farmer from other parts of the world, and have an opportunity to practice another language? Familial capital, that's similar to the funds of knowledge that Moll introduced, where this represents the cultural knowledge that is developed over time within and between family and social kinships. There's so much emotional, moral, educational, and occupational consciousness, that these families bring. That's a part of their legacy. How do we as educators help bring in those resources? Have we taken an inventory of the community resources that we have within our immigrant communities? A lot of these parents and families, at this time, they may be working other, honest ways of learning, earning a living, such as dishwashing, perhaps housekeeping, working in our meat packing industries. But, they may have other stories to tell, other experiences. They may have been a carpenter back, in a different part of the world. They may have been a doctor. I've met doctors who are actually washing dishes. And so, have we taken an inventory of who these communities of color are from the immigrant community, and what they have previously done, in their place in their native land? There's 4 other forms of capital that we need to also keep in mind. Social. The social capital has to do with a context that provide orientation and guidance, and can help them leverage, their way around, in terms of their attainment of goals and outcomes. Navigational skills is very closely related to that. They go hand in hand, and I want to point out that a lot of these forms of capital that Yoso is referring to are not something to be seen as hierarchical or linear, but rather they interact with each other. I have an uncle, rest in peace, who came from Mexico. In Mexico, he only went to about 2nd grade. He didn't know how to read. He didn't know how to read Spanish, which is a very phonetic language. It's a very simple language to learn. But, schooling was not a priority at that time for him as a kid. And, he was working as a kid. Well, as an adult, without knowing how to read, he found his way and made his way all the way to Chicago. Imagine that. Somebody who is considered illiterate, somehow able to navigate, using skills to maneuver through, the different pathways to Chicago. And it's not only about getting from one way to another, but I want that to be an illustration of how there are structures of inequality that exist within our school systems that make it very hard for our communities of color to navigate. It's kind of like speaking in a different language. I mean, even if they learn English, it's still different, a different language, a different way of looking at things to navigate different structures. How do we apply for college? FAFSA is involved. Well, how do we navigate FAFSA? There's so many different kinds of structures that is very important about, going forward and moving forward with reaching those goals and outcomes. But for our immigrant community, that can be an added layer of strange language, strange or different ways of doing things. Resistant capital refers to the oppositional behaviors that challenges inequality. Sometimes I saw as a kid, and later on as a teacher, I saw students engage in oppositional behavior because they did feel very directly the impact of inequality. Perhaps they didn't view it as inequality, but they certainly felt it. When I was linguistically oppressed as a kid, not able to speak my own language, Spanish, that was a structure that was intentionally suppressing who I am, deconstructing my identity. And so I did see some kids engage in oppositional behavior, challenging by speaking out in Spanish. So when we see kids engage in oppositional behaviors, I think that's an important point for us to really sit and reflect about what is it about what we're doing in our school that is leading to this oppositional behavior. Let's look behind the scenes. Let's find that root cause. What is drawing these kids or families to engage in oppositional behavior? And then finally, there's spiritual, which refers to a set of resources and skills rooted in a spiritual connection to a reality greater than oneself. That can encompass religious, indigenous, and ancestral beliefs. We hear about home remedies, for example. My mom, if you talk to my mom, thank God she's still alive and with us today. She's 88 years old. But sometimes even my sister, who is a doctor and has kids, and she goes to my mom and says, Mom, my little one is experiencing this, this, and this. And my mom tells her, oh, well, you got to get this tea and you got to make it with this particular herbs. So even my sister, who's a medical doctor, relies on my mom for some of these herbal remedies. What are we missing out on, as educators, when we exclude the voice of our communities of color? That's an important reflection that we need to think about. And Dr. Green, I see your comment there. You're curious about my dissertation. Well, my dissertation that I defend on Monday is connected to the community cultural wealth that he also brings to the table. But I'm also making a connection for educators to understand a little bit further in terms of how our communities of color can engage in higher order thinking if we engage them with the community cultural wealth capital that they bring. So I'm looking at Yoso's work, these different forms of capital, and I'm making some connections to Bloom's taxonomy. Now, Bloom's taxonomy is very hierarchical, and it's usually seen as a way to measure, in testing, or measure students' understanding and application and so on. And there's different levels. So I'm not going to go too much into Bloom's taxonomy because educators know and understand this. But just a reminder that the lower three levels, remembering, understanding, and applying, are considered to be lower levels of thinking. Analyzing, evaluating, and creating are seen as higher levels of thinking. But the higher levels of thinking cannot be processed to its fullness without the lower levels of cognitive reasoning. So what I propose in examining the interactive dynamics is basically that when I was working with some parents in my study, I was looking at the way that the parents utilize their community cultural wealth and how their actions, the way that they engage with utilizing, mobilizing, organizing, coordinating, the different forms of cultural wealth and different forms of capital, how these different layers of human capital also engage the parents to demonstrate lower and higher levels of cognitive reasoning. So that's why I look at this in terms of a circular, interactive, fluid process where communities of color mobilize their capital to navigate, to oppose, to aspire. They draw on these different linguistic, everything that comprises a cultural wealth to engage in cognitive reasoning. And so when I think about this and the work that I did with the parents, I also think about the potential for how do we as educators apply this with our students too? If we apply this this asset-based approach to utilizing what our communities of color bring to the table, we can more readily perhaps mobilize higher order as well as lower order thinking by making meaningful connections to the human capital that they are familiar with and apply it to analyzing, evaluating, creating, synthesizing, all of that as students. And so when we think about this process, I don't want you to think about it in a hierarchy like Bloom's taxonomy is presented, but rather that all layers of cognitive reasoning interacting with the capital that our communities of color bring to the table, all of them together are important in helping the students make connections. For our emergent bilinguals, this is key. It is key for our emergent bilinguals, for educators to make learning meaningful as background knowledge, drawing on their funds of knowledge, drawing on their community cultural wealth. And when we have those meetings with parents, those meetings with parents is not just a checklist compliance event, but rather they can be engaging the parents as partners in education, as key stakeholders, as part of the decision-making process, not as tokens like, okay, we already had our open house event and that's it, but rather how do we have them join us at the table? How do we engage them as critical thinkers? I saw parents in my study as immigrant activists that were basically supporters of immigration reform, engage in different ways of mobilizing the community. They exhibited leadership skills, and we're missing out on those leadership skills that our parents exhibit because we don't include them. So it boils down to thinking about the different things that we can do as teachers, as educators, to engage our emergent bilinguals that will lead to their success. So at this point, I'm going to draw from some research in terms of some highlights that show us some commonalities, some things that we need to be considering to build a learning environment that is going to mobilize and engage our emergent bilinguals. And it starts from the top. Leadership sets the tone. If leaders are not embracing the opportunity, if leadership does not really believe in all students can learn, if leadership does not actively seek out those opportunities to recognize that educating emergent bilinguals is a responsibility of the entire school staff, then we just missed the boat right there completely. District and campus leaders must send a strong message that it is important that these emergent bilinguals are everybody's responsibilities. It's not just the ESL teacher's responsibility. It's not just the lone wolf advocate to reach out to the community of immigrant parents. It's up to all of us. These are our children. All our children need to be seen by staff as our responsibility. We can't exclude them from the process of engagement. So those are some bullets there that you can certainly read on your own, that, things that school leaders must consider in spreading out the message that, these are our kids. Everybody needs to take ownership. And so as we move forward, with that, that talk also needs to be, supported with action. What about the professional development that the instructional leaders are providing? Do the ESL and bilingual teachers have equitable access to all staff development resources and materials? Or do we limit those opportunities? Do we only let our math experts go to the math conferences? As an ESL teacher, I was left out of math or science or other very important PD, which could have been really good for me, because then I would have had that opportunity to more effectively engage emergent bilinguals in the learning of math, science, social studies. Something else that we need to be mindful of in education is recognizing that English learners are not homogeneous. They are a very different individual, experience that they bring. When we think about English learners, many times people are thinking Latino. And when they think about Latino immigrants, many times they're thinking Mexican. Well, not all of us are Mexican, right? The Latino community is a very diverse community. They come from Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina, Guatemala, El Salvador, different parts of Latin America. But not only is their country of origin the difference that we need to think about, these are other things that we need to be thinking about. Every kid, every family has a set of lenses to which to look at, view the world, to engage in the human experience. What is their language of, background? Just because they come from Latin America doesn't mean that they speak Spanish, because we have indigenous populations there that speak Native American languages. And when I say Native American, I'm not just referring to Native American here in the United States. Remember, there's two continents, the Americas, right? So there's Native Americans from Canada all the way down to the tip of South America. And they have different languages. What about birth order in the family? Have you ever considered, stop to think about how birth order in the family might have implications? I was the oldest in my family. When I entered school, I didn't know much English. There's a question, what number do I dial having trouble accessing Dr. King's session? Will one of our facilitators please respond to that message? As the oldest sibling, I didn't know much English, but the youngest siblings, because we talked with each other over time, right? Practicing our new language, they entered school with a lot more English than I did. So that's just one example of an implication. So there's all these different individual differences that need to be explored in terms of how it impacts the education of our kids. Gender roles and assumptions. I can tell you that in my family, there were gender roles that was something that was suppressing my sisters, especially the oldest sister, right? She's second to me in birth order. But, she did not receive the same opportunities as my younger sister. My father was very protective of her. And so she did not get the same educational experience as my younger sister, the doctor that I was speaking about. She's the youngest of the family. So how can we talk with parents about these opportunities that don't limit kids because of their gender or gender identity? How do we help parents understand that, it's important for our young ladies to have that full experience and opportunity to excel? Not just the boys, the girls need that opportunity as well. There are strong links between homeschool and community that need to be thought of as educators. If we want to build that equitable learning environment for our communities of color, and in this case, we're talking about our emergent bilinguals, it's important that we keep these different bullet points in mind. Does our school staff, for example, include adults from students' heritage communities and speakers of their language? Does our teaching staff have teachers that represent the population that we serve? And I know that that can be very challenging, when we have 74 languages represented, for example. But, do we have opportunities to grow our own teachers where we do open that possibility that we got to plan long term? Maybe we can't do this right now at this time, but how do we plan long term so that our staff or people that are engaging with the community reflects more readily the populations that we serve? Do we have a Grow Your Teacher program that starts in high school? As educators, a lot of times we shoot ourselves in our feet because we talk down about education. We speak badly about being a teacher. Well, we don't get paid, so nobody go into teaching. That's my recommendation. No, we need to uplift our profession. We need to market our profession. I get much rewards out of my journey as an educator that was not monetary. But now I see a lot of fruits of my labor when students of mine, former English learners, come to me and they give me an update of where they're at in their life. Some are very successful, some not so successful, but all of them are very productive citizens and contributing members of the society. And that's uplifting. How are we impacting them? Do our teachers understand that across different cultures and settings, the role of parents in their children's education vary? In some cultures, parents' responsibilities center around the provision of necessities, protection, discipline, and moral guidance. And they may view schooling as a responsibility of the educators. This is an important perspective to consider. Because when we understand that parents have that view, traditionally, for example, from Mexico, parents see this as just the responsibility of teachers. And so they draw the line. They view their role as raising the kids. My responsibility as a parent is to raise my kids to be in good behavior, to engage in a positive way. But your job is to teach them. So how do we bridge that? How do we have that conversation? Those are important opportunities. And if we're familiar with those community cultural wealth forms of capital that I talked about earlier, that can be a bridge between the culture of the school, the culture of the parents, and then having those critical conversations as we engage together in those possibilities. These are some other things to consider in terms of the connection between the home, school, and community. Making sure that we're aware of the potential linguistic, cultural, economic, and logistical obstacles. A lot of times we schedule things without really considering the impact it might have on parents and their ability to participate. We may have to have evening sessions or Saturday sessions. Do we have a link with a faith community? If they don't come to school, let's go to the church. Let's go to the places of worship. That may open doors, to have our audience in a setting where they feel the most comfortable. That's an important consideration. One of the things that I found in the study that I did with parents, immigrant parents, is that spiritual connection. As they were engaging in immigration reform manifestations and civic engagement, the church, their place of worship, played an important role. And it wasn't just Catholic, because religious experiences in the Latino community is not limited to Catholic. It's also a very diverse religious representation. So I saw that not only in the setting of a Catholic church, but I saw that in the setting of a Methodist church, for example. And then I saw both churches collaborate with each other. So those are the opportunities that we need to look for as educators as we seek out to make stronger connections between the home and the school. Do our emergent bilinguals have equitable access to all school resources and programs? Think about it. Do our emergent bilinguals participate in extracurricular opportunities, whether it's athletics, music, academic competition? Take an inventory. This school year, as you start, as students start to sign up for all these different opportunities, see how many emergent bilinguals you find in that list. And that'll tell you a whole lot of things right there. As a former English learner, I can tell you that participating in band definitely exposed me to different experiences that I otherwise would not have experienced. You see, music also is another language. It also represents math in a different way. And participating in band introduced me to the concept of being in a different community, a team that collaborated and participated and worked together in marching band, in symphony, and so on and so forth. But I also participated as a football player. My father didn't understand that sport, but he supported me. He said, well, you go ahead, mijo, go ahead and try out. Only 5'4", but yet there I was trying out for football and I made the team. And that introduced me to another community, the athletic community. But see, band and football and basketball and track and number sense, all of those represented opportunities for me to practice the English language in different registers. So it wasn't just, learning English, in English 1, English 2, and so on and so forth. It was actually applying English in different settings. So don't rob the opportunities for students to practice language and experience language in different settings. Those are key opportunities for students. Counselors. When I first went to high school, my counselor asked me, what do you want to be? I said, I wanted to be a doctor. He looks at my transcript, K to 6, and then 7 through 8. He said, well, you know what? I think you'll be more successful going into welding and these other technical classes. And I didn't see myself as a welder. I wanted to be a doctor. But that's not how the counselor saw me. The thing that the counselor didn't realize is that, you see, I had gone through 7 years of learning a new language. So perhaps my grades were not up to par. But what the counselor didn't see is that by the end of my 4 years of high school, I was a straight A student. I was number 7 in my class. But because I didn't get the counseling that I needed, I didn't take the right classes that would prepare me for the medical dream that I wanted to. So I struggled in college when I got there. I didn't have the right math. I didn't have the right science. I excelled in biology. That was my assumption, because I counseled myself. I said, okay, I want to be a doctor, so I know that they need to know biology and anatomy. So I got A's in those. But I didn't know that I had to have chemistry, that I had to have calculus. And so I was not prepared for that dream that I had visualized. But guess what? I made certain that my little sister knew which classes to take, and she eventually did become that medical doctor. So how do we guide our students? And what I tell my teachers as a former principal, I would tell them, look, not all our kids are going to have that access to the counselor that they truly need. So all of you need to really find out what the kids' dreams are, and you need to counsel them. You need to let them know which classes they need to take. And then you need to help them have a key conversation with the counselors, so that the counselors know that there's adults backing up these kids. That's an important practice for you to make sure to practice. Do our teachers have high expectations for our emergent bilinguals? If we don't, our students know this. They can read between the lines. They can see through your tone or through your, they read your eyes as you're talking. And if you don't believe what you're saying, if you don't have those high expectations, they will live up to the low expectations that you have. But when you have those high expectations, where all students can learn and will learn, that right there is a huge game changer for the kids. Knowing that an adult believes in them, and not only believes in them, but is actually actively doing things to support them, scaffolding, instruction, making content comprehensible, making sure that they are accessing, the quality educational experience that they deserve. And when they get to high school or even in middle school, do they have access to that challenging academic content? That's important. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Green. It's definitely an experience that many of us have had, where there are low expectations, for students, and our counselors have some of those lower expectations as well, right? But how do we, as a community, as a profession of educators, how do we change the narrative? Each of us that are engaged in this conference, thank you, IDRA, EAC-South. It is important for us to come together and mobilize and activate our voice, lift the trajectory of the narrative, so that we see our kids with an asset-based lens and not a deficit point of view. How well prepared are teachers And how willing are teachers to teach emergent bilinguals? I've seen many a time when, a district just basically says or makes a mandate, all teachers will be ESL certified. Well, in a way, I can see the purpose behind that. I mean, you want to be compliant with the state. You want to show that you are taking action to meet the needs of our emergent bilinguals. But I've met some teachers who are forced to comply, and they pass the ESL certification, but then we end up with a certified ESL teacher who doesn't know how to meet the needs of our emergent bilinguals. So if districts are mandating this, they need to back it up beyond just challenging the test. We need to make sure that those teachers that pass the test are invested in long-term, ongoing professional development that is very targeted, very intentional with meeting the needs of our English learners. Do we provide that professional development that help them with first and second language acquisition, reading and writing in a second language, methods for teaching content subjects to emergent bilinguals? Do we have teachers know how to make accommodations or prepare assessments that are going to be true measures of a student's progress? What about social cultural issues in education? Right now across the nation, there's a push for limiting how teachers teach certain things. They're hushing us. They're silencing the voice of teachers. And this movement to do this is just not a good thing for all of us. Students are very aware of what's going on in the country. They read the news, they hear the news, they are exposed to the news and social media. They do have questions. They do wonder. And how do we avoid those questions? They're legitimate questions. They're legitimate opportunities to engage our kids in critical conversations that impact their future, but also our future as a country. Here in El Paso, Texas, there's many here that say, because it's predominantly Latino community here, so a lot still have the mindset that, racism is something that it's not experienced here in our community. That's something that happens in the Southeast US, where there's the Black and white racial tensions. Doesn't happen here in El Paso. Well, I beg to differ. Our kids here in El Paso, just like everybody else in the country, needs to have these critical conversations about racism. Because our kids are not just going to stay in El Paso all their lives. They're going to be going out to other communities. And August the 3rd is just around the corner. August the 3rd was a painful day for El Paso a few years ago, when somebody from another part of Texas traveled all the way to El Paso to intentionally target Mexicans. And so while we may be a little sheltered from, those racial tensions, those realities are very real. We cannot blind ourselves here in El Paso to how the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric that is going on, contributed to what happened August the 3rd at Walmart here in El Paso. So kids have those questions. How do we prepare our kids to advocate for themselves How do we prepare our kids to have those positive and constructive conversations? How do we help our kids engage in conversations where there's disagreements? Those are all part of how we as educators need to lead the way for our emergent bilingual students, but also, do we find ways to bring emergent bilingual students to interact with other students? Or do we seclude them? Do we isolate them from each other? That's not reality. In the real world, we need to interact with each other. So that's another area that we need to explore, is how we can help our students, our emergent bilinguals, become active participants within the whole school community with other students. Do we have language and literacy infused throughout the educational process? Those are other things that we need to think about. I know that I'm running out of time, so you will get a copy of this PowerPoint, and you can certainly read through that. Assessment is authentic, credible to learners and instructors, and takes into account first and second language literacy development. That's another key area for us to contemplate and think about. All of these resources can be found if you want to dig deeper into the different highlights that I shared with you. This is an opportunity for you to engage with that a little deeper. So as time runs out, I want to thank everybody for participating. Thank you for coming together with this conversation. If you ever want me to provide more dialogue or facilitate these conversations with you, I'm going to share my email address, and you are welcome to reach out and answer any questions that maybe you need more clarification about in terms of the presentation. Thank you, Roderica. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you so much, Zulema. Appreciate it. Dr. Carrion Sanchez. So unless you have any other questions, I guess we can draw this to a close. We have other sessions that are coming up that are just really great topics. Thank you again, IDRA, EAC-South, for bringing us together, for having this wonderful experience for all of us. And thank you for confirming my pronunciation so much. Y'all take care. And hopefully next time we meet, I'll be Dr. Velázquez. Thank you for the prayers and positive thoughts my way. Thank you.